My son emptied my entire retirement account without saying a single word to me. And when I confronted him, what came out of his mouth chilled me to the bone. But I swear, what I did after that, he's never going to forget it. My name is Elijah Sterling, but folks call me Eli. I'm 60 years old, and I never imagined I'd be telling this story. Before I continue, I want to ask you a favor. If this story touches your heart, help me reach 7,000 subscribers on this channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing there are people from all over following these stories. Believe me, what you're about to hear will teach you something important about family and respect. It all started on a Tuesday morning, just a regular, ordinary Tuesday that turned into the worst nightmare of my life. I'd gone to the bank to take out some cash for the week's expenses. Nothing crazy, just what I needed for groceries and my blood pressure medication. I had been extremely careful with my retirement for years because after working 35 years as a middle school math teacher, that pension was the only thing I had to live with dignity. The teller gave me a strange look when I put in my card. She tried once, twice, 3 times. "Mr. Sterling, we have a problem here," she finally said softly. "Your account is empty." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "Empty? What do you mean, empty?" I asked, feeling the blood rush to my head. There should have been almost $180,000 in there. It was 3 full years of my savings. She typed something on her computer, and her face grew serious. "Mr. Sterling, there was a withdrawal 4 days ago. The entire account was emptied from an ATM. It was multiple withdrawals over 2 consecutive days." My hands were shaking. I pulled out my cell phone and checked my banking messages. Sure enough, there they were. A $10,000 withdrawal, another $10,000, one after the other, until my account was completely drained. But I hadn't taken out a dime. "I need to know which ATM those withdrawals were made from," I said, trying to stay calm. After a few minutes, the answer hit me like a punch to the stomach. The withdrawals had been made from lots near my son Jordan's job in the affluent business district of Buckhead. I drove back home with my legs trembling. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But when I walked in and saw Jordan sitting in the living room, drinking coffee like nothing was wrong, I knew I had to face him. And what happened next? What he said when I asked him about my money, that was the moment my life changed forever. But before I tell you about that conversation, you need to understand who I am, how I got here, and why what my son did wasn't just robbery. It was the biggest betrayal a father could ever experience. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, you need to know my story. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I was born in a small town in rural Georgia, where my daddy worked the fields and my mama sold pies to help pay the bills. From the time I was a boy, I knew what hunger, cold, and need felt like. But I also learned something my parents taught me every single day: the value of honest work and the importance of family. When I was 18, I came up to Atlanta with a dream: to go to college and become a teacher. I worked any job I could find. I hauled produce at the farmer's market, washed cars, and delivered newspapers before dawn. I slept in a small room I shared with 3 other young men. I went hungry more often than I care to remember, but I never gave up. I finished my degree at Georgia State at 24. I got my first job teaching algebra at a middle school in Clayton County. The pay wasn't much, but to me, it was a treasure. Finally, I could eat 3 square meals a day. Finally, I could help my folks back home. At 28, I met Shonda, the woman who would become the love of my life. She was a teacher, too. English Lit. We got married in a simple ceremony. No fancy stuff, but it was full of love. 3 years later, Jordan was born. When that boy came into our lives, I swore I would do everything possible so he'd never go through the hardships I did. That he would have education, opportunity, a better future. And I kept that promise, even if it cost me my whole life. Jordan was just 8 when Shonda got sick. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months later, it took her. I was left alone with a little boy, hospital debts, and a hole in my chest that never quite closed up. But I didn't give up. On the contrary, I worked double. Besides my teaching job, I tutored in the evenings. On weekends, I did consulting. I gave up everything. Going out, having fun, the possibility of starting a new life with another woman. My sole purpose was to give Jordan everything he needed. I paid for the best private school I could afford. When he got to high school, I took out a loan to put him in an academy with an advanced track. For college, I worked double shifts so he could go to a prestigious private university for business administration. Throughout all those years, we lived in a rented apartment in East Atlanta. It was small and old, but it was our home. Jordan always had the best. Designer clothes, new sneakers, the latest phone, and nights out with his friends. I wore the same clothes for years. I ate the cheapest food possible. I never treated myself to anything. When Jordan turned 21, I made the most important decision of my life, to buy a house. I couldn't keep paying rent forever, so I took out a mortgage. It was a modest place in Stone Mountain. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, nothing luxurious, but it was ours. It was the legacy I would leave my son. For 15 years, I paid that mortgage religiously. I never missed a single month, even if it meant skipping in meals. The last 5 years before I retired were the hardest. Besides the mortgage, I helped Jordan with extra expenses while he was getting established in his career. I bought him his first used car. I lent him money for the down payment on his own new car. He never paid me back, but I didn't press him. He was my son. I finished paying off the house 2 years after I retired. When I received the deed, clear and free of liens, I cried like a child. Finally, after 60 years of life and 35 years of honest work, I had something in this world. A roof that no one could take from me. A place to grow old with dignity. Jordan was married by then to Chloe. They'd met at the corporate firm where he worked as a sales manager. She clearly came from a family with money. From the beginning, I noticed she looked at me differently, like I was less than. But I figured it was just my imagination. After the wedding, they rented a beautiful, modern apartment in Midtown. But the rent was sky high. I stayed in my small house in Stone Mountain, happy with my retirement, my plants on the patio, my books. I didn't ask for more. My life was simple. I got my $4,000 pension check every month. With that, I covered utilities, food, and my blood pressure medication. And every month, without fail, I saved what I could. In 3 years, I had put together that $180,000. It was my safety net, my peace of mind for any emergency. I never imagined the emergency would come from where it did. Jordan had a copy of my bank card. I had given it to him years ago when I started having health issues and was afraid something might happen to me and I couldn't access money for an emergency. It was a security measure, a measure of trust. That trust was my biggest mistake, because 4 days before that Tuesday at the bank, My own son had used that card to rob me, to empty the account of the father who sacrificed his entire life for him. And when I confronted him that afternoon, what he said was worse than the theft itself. The problems with Jordan didn't start overnight. They were like a silent illness that slowly advances without you noticing, until one day you wake up and it's too late. The first change I noticed was after his wedding. Jordan had always been a good son. Not perfect, but good. He called often, visited on Sundays, and asked how I was doing. But after he married Chloe, those visits became more spread out. First, it was once every 2 weeks, then once a month, then every 2 months. And when he did come over, he wasn't the same. He was rushed, constantly checking his phone, looking uncomfortable, as if being with me was an annoying obligation. "Dad, I'm sorry, but we have a dinner with Chloe's bosses," he'd say after barely an hour. "You know how this job is. Got a network." I understood, or that's what I told myself. Young people have their own lives, their commitments. I couldn't demand he spend all his time with me. But there was something else, too. Something in the way Chloe looked at me when they came together. One time, when I made my famous baked macaroni and cheese and fried chicken, I saw her nose wrinkle discreetly. "Oh no, Eli, thank you so much, but I'm on a diet," she said with a forced smile. "Besides, you know, mac and cheese is so heavy, so many carbs." Jordan didn't eat either. "We should go, honey. We have that thing to take care of," he told her. Another time, I invited them over for Jordan's birthday in November. It was cold. I prepared a big pot of chili, his favorite meal since he was a boy. They arrived late, almost 9 o'clock at night. "Dad, we already grabbed something quick on the way," Jordan said without even looking at the steaming pot I'd been cooking for hours. "We just came by out of obligation." Out of obligation? Those words pierced me like needles. Chloe sat on the edge of the couch as if she were afraid of getting dirty. She looked around the house with that expression I knew so well. Contempt disguised as politeness. "Eli, have you thought about remodeling a little, say?" she said in a tone that pretended to be kind. "This house has potential, but it's so dated. A little modern paint. Change out these old pieces of furniture." I bought this furniture with my first paycheck as a teacher," I replied, feeling my blood boil. "To me, they have value." She smiled that condescending way that irritated me so much. "Oh yes, of course. Sentimental value. How sweet." But the tone made it clear what she really thought, that it was junk. Things got worse when Jordan and Chloe started having financial problems. They never told me directly, but I'd hear bits and pieces. That the Midtown rent was too expensive. That Chloe's new car payments were too high. That credit card bills were spiraling out of control. One day, Jordan came over alone. He looked worried, stressed. "Dad, I need to talk to you," he said, sitting at the kitchen table, just like when he was a kid and had a problem. For a moment, I felt like I had my son back. "Tell me, son, whatever you need. The thing is, Chloe and I are thinking that paying rent doesn't make sense anymore. It's just throwing money away. We want to buy a house, start building equity." "That sounds excellent," I told him sincerely. "That's the smart thing to do. Rent is wasted money." He fidgeted nervously with his hands. "The problem is the down payment, the closing costs, and all that. It's tough. The banks want so much up front, and we..." He paused for a moment. "Dad, this house is too big for just you. It has 3 bedrooms, and you barely use one. Have you thought about, I don't know, renting it out or something? That way, you'd have extra income. That's when the direction of the conversation started to bother me. Jordan, I paid for this house with 15 years of my life. It's my home. I'm not going to rent it out. No. Yeah, of course. I get it, he said quickly. It's just that, well, thinking about it, this house will be mine someday, right? When when you're no longer around. So I was thinking, maybe you could put it in my name now as an early inheritance. That way, I could use it as collateral for a loan and buy our place. You'd still live here, obviously, but legally, it would be mine. I froze. Are you asking me to give you my house? I'm not asking for it, Dad. It's already mine by right someday. I'm just suggesting we speed up the process. You save on the will, the notary fees when you pass, and you help me now when I really need it. I didn't know what hurt more, that he asked for my house, or that he spoke of my death with such coldness, as if it were just paperwork waiting to happen. Jordan, this house is my security. If I end up with nothing, and something happens, where am I going to live? But you'll still be living here, Dad, he said, exasperated. I'm not kicking you out. I just need the paper, the deed, in my name. The answer is no. He got up from the chair angrily. I knew you were going to be difficult. Chloe told me not to waste my time, that you would never really want to help us. Help you? I gave you my whole life, Jordan. Everything I have, I gave to you. Yeah, I know, the same old speech, he said with sarcasm, mimicking my voice. I sacrificed for you. I worked so hard for you. You know what, Dad? That was your obligation. That's what having kids means. Nobody asked you to martyr yourself so much. I was speechless. That was my son. The boy I rocked when he cried. The one I helped with homework until 2 a.m. The one I comforted when his mama died. He slammed the door shut on his way out. He didn't come back for 2 months. The next time I saw him was on Christmas, and he came with Chloe. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. They barely said hello, dropped a generic gift, a cheap shirt they clearly bought last minute, on the table, and left before 10 o'clock. We have dinner with Chloe's family, Jordan said without even looking me in the eyes. You know, they're really close, very big on traditions. The message was clear. Chloe's family mattered. I didn't. But the real hell was just about to begin. That Tuesday, when I came back from the bank with empty hands and a broken heart, Jordan was sitting in my living room, in my house, drinking coffee as if nothing had happened. He hadn't even taken off his work shoes. He was wearing his expensive Italian loafers, the kind that cost more than my entire monthly pension check. Chloe was next to him, scrolling through something on her phone with a smug smile. Jordan, I need to talk to you, I said, and my voice came out more shaky than I wanted. He didn't even look up from his phone. What is it, Dad? I'm busy. I have an online meeting in 20 minutes. I went to the bank today, I said, and I felt the tears start to burn my eyes, but I swallowed them. My account is empty. The $180,000 I had saved disappeared. He finally looked up, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't surprise, or guilt, or shame. It was annoyance, as if I were a bothersome child interrupting something important. Oh, that, he said in a casual tone, as if we were talking about the weather. Yeah, that was me. I needed the money. I had some bills to pay, and the bank was pressuring me. You have the house. You don't pay rent. You don't have big expenses. I gave you the card years ago for emergencies, right? Well, This was my emergency. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Chloe kept looking at her phone, as if the conversation had nothing to do with her. Jordan, that money was 3 years of my savings. 3 years of saving from my retirement. It was for my medicines, for anything that might come up. How could you? Dad, don't be dramatic, he interrupted, getting up from the couch in frustration. It's not a big deal. I mean, what do you need $180,000 for, anyway? You live alone. You don't spend money on anything. Your life is simple. I, on the other hand, have a family to support. I have expenses, responsibilities. I'm your family, I yelled. And I think it was the first time in years I'd raised my voice like that. I am your father! Chloe finally looked up from her phone. She looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. Eli, I think you're overreacting. Jordan is your son, your only family. The money you have is really his, too. You're going to leave it to him anyway. That money is mine, I said, feeling my whole body tremble. I saved it dollar by dollar. You have no right. Right? Jordan laughed with sarcasm. You want to talk about rights, Dad? Fine. Let's talk about rights. He walked up to me, and his height made me feel small, vulnerable. He wasn't the boy I carried in my arms anymore. He was a grown man looking down at me with contempt. You live in this house, right? He said, pointing around. A house with 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a backyard. And you use it all by yourself. While Chloe and I pay $3,000 a month in rent for an apartment the size of this living room. I paid for this house with my work. Yes, I know. But now that I think about it, you know what? This house should be mine. You've lived your life, Dad. You worked on, you retired. Now it's my turn. And frankly, keeping this house like this just for you is a waste. My heart stopped. What are you saying? Chloe got up too and stood next to Jordan, forming a united front against me. What Jordan is saying, she spoke with that privileged voice that irritated me so much, is that this house is too big for one person. The logical thing would be for us to live here as a family. And you could stay in one of the bedrooms. Everyone happy. This is my house, I said, feeling panic. I paid for it. It's in my name. Jordan smiled. And that smile was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. For now, Dad, for now, it's in your name. But you're an old man, 60 years old, with high blood pressure, with health issues. Things happen. And when they do, this house is going to be mine anyway. Wouldn't it be better if you just accepted reality? Are you insane? I whispered. I can't believe you're my son. Look, Dad, I'm going to be very clear with you, Jordan said, crossing his arms. I took that money, and I'm not giving it back. Consider that your contribution for continuing to live here like back rent. Because let's be honest, you've been retired for 2 years, living in a house this size, paying for absolutely nothing but utilities. Back rent, this house is mine. Legally, yes, but morally. Dad, I'm your only heir. This house is practically mine already. We're just waiting for, well, you know, for nature to take its course. Chloe nodded, as if everything Jordan said made perfect sense. Besides, Eli, it's not like you have many options, she added. Where are you going to go? With a $4,000 pension, you can't even rent a decent room. You need this house as much as we need you. Well, we need the house. Get out, I said, and my voice was broken. Get out of my house, right now. Jordan laughed out loud. You're kicking us out, Dad. I don't think you understand. Sooner or later, we are going to live here. You can be stubborn, but that's the reality. So you'd better accept the situation gracefully. They walked calmly toward the door. Before leaving, Jordan turned back. Oh, and Dad, seriously, don't make a scene about the money. It was an insignificant amount. You've always been so exaggerated about everything. We'll talk when you've calmed down. The door closed behind them. I was left alone in the middle of the living room, trembling with rage, pain, and disbelief. My own son had just robbed me, humiliated me, and threatened me in my own home. And on top of that, he had told me I should consider myself lucky he was still letting me live here. I fell onto the couch. For the first time in many years, I cried, as I hadn't since Shonda died. I cried for the son I lost, for the cruel, ambitious man he had become, for the years I sacrificed raising him alone, for the stolen money, for the betrayal. But through those tears, something began to grow inside me. It wasn't just sadness, it was something darker, colder, more determined. Because Jordan and Chloe had made a massive mistake. They had assumed I was a foolish old man, defenseless, with no options. They had assumed this house was already theirs. They had assumed I would stay silent, accepting the humiliation. But what they didn't know, what they were about to discover in the most painful way possible, was that this old teacher still had plenty of lessons left to teach, and the most important one was coming. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the darkness of my bedroom, staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. Jordan's words bounced in my head like bullets. Consider that your contribution for continuing to live here. This house is practically mine already. We're just waiting for nature to take its course. My own son wishing for my death so he could inherit. My own son robbing me as if I were a stranger. When did I lose the child who hugged my legs when he had nightmares? When did he turn into this monster? But between the pain and the rage, my teacher's mind started working. For 35 years, I taught math, but I also taught something more important, that every problem has a solution if you analyze it with a cool head. And this problem had a solution. At 6 o'clock in the morning, when the sun came up, I already had a plan. The first thing I did was go to my small study. There, in a safe box I bought years ago, I kept all my important documents. I took out the house deed and reviewed it carefully, line by line. There was my name, Elijah Sterling, sole owner, free of liens. No other name appeared on that document. The house was mine and mine alone, legally and absolutely. Jordan had assumed he would inherit it someday, and technically, he was right. If I died without making changes, as an only child, he would be my universal heir. But I was still alive, and while I was alive, that house was untouchable by him. More importantly, I remembered something Jordan had clearly forgotten or never knew. Years ago, when I took out the mortgage, the bank offered me life insurance. If I died before finishing the payments, the insurance would cover the rest of the debt. But I declined that insurance because it was too expensive, and instead I paid for everything out of my own pocket, year after year. That meant something crucial. There was no designated beneficiary on any bank document. There was no paper that said, "In case of death, transfer to Jordan Sterling." Nothing. The house was completely mine to do with as I chose. Jordan thought he just had to wait, but I had absolute control. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I called a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Marcus Thorne, a former student of mine from 25 years ago. Marcus had been one of my best students. When his father died and his mother didn't have money for his tuition, I talked to the principal and got him a scholarship. Marcus never forgot it. "Mr. Sterling," he said excitedly when he answered, "it's good to hear from you. How are you?" "Marcus, I need your help. It's urgent, and it's sensitive." We met that same afternoon in his office. I told him everything: the theft, the veiled threats, the humiliation. Marcus listened in silence, and when I finished, I saw the same rage in his eyes that I felt. "Mr. Sterling, this is financially elder abuse by a relative. It's a crime. We can file a criminal complaint." "I don't want to put him in jail," I said, although part of me did. "But I need to protect myself. I need to make absolutely sure he can never take my house." Marcus thought for a moment, rubbing his chin, just like when he was a teenager solving a difficult algebra problem. "I have an idea, Mr. Sterling, but you have to be completely sure. Once we do this, there's no going back. You could sell the house, sell it to someone you trust for a symbolic price, even $1. That way you get it out of your legal name. Jordan won't be able to claim anything because you used your right as the owner, and then when things cool down, that person can sell it back to you. You can live there paying a symbolic rent. But in the meantime, Jordan will have zero rights to that property." It was brilliant, but there was one problem. "Who do I sell it to, Marcus? I don't have family. I don't have friends close enough to do that for me." Marcus smiled. "Me, Mr. Sterling? Sell it to me." I was silent, overcome with emotion. "Marcus, I can't ask you. You're not asking me for anything. I'm offering. You changed my life when I was a boy. If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have even finished high school. Today, I'm a lawyer because of you. It's the least I can do." 2 days later, we signed the papers. The house was legally transferred to Marcus Thorne for the amount of $10,000, the legal minimum for the sale to be valid. Marcus signed a private contract guaranteeing he would transfer the house back to me when I asked, or failing that, allow me to live there for life, paying only the utilities. But most importantly, we made a certified copy of the new deed. The house was no longer in my name. Therefore, Jordan could not inherit it. He could not claim it, and he could not take it. Over the next 2 weeks, Jordan and Chloe did not show up at the house. Perfect. The less they knew about my movements, the better. I also went to the bank and filed a formal complaint about the theft. The executive explained the process. Since Jordan had used my card without authorization, it was technically fraud. They could proceed legally to recover the money. I signed all of the necessary paperwork. "Mr. Sterling," the executive told me, "this may take several months, but there's a very high probability you'll recover your money. The bank has records of all the withdrawals, the ATM camera footage, everything." I nodded. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the principle. It was to make Jordan understand he couldn't do whatever he wanted with his father's life, but the real lesson would come next. One evening, the doorbell rang. It was Jordan. He was alone, this time, without Chloe. "Hey, Dad," he said with a fake smile. "Can we talk?" I let him in. He sat in the living room, and I noticed he seemed humbler than last time, less arrogant. Look, Dad, I've been thinking. Maybe I was too hard on you the other day. Chloe told me I exaggerated. So, I've come to propose something. Here it came, the manipulation disguised as reconciliation. How about we do this? He continued. You give me the deed to the house, we transfer it to my name, and I'll sign a contract guaranteeing you can live here until the end. That way, we both win. I can use the house as collateral for a loan. And you have the security that I'll never kick you out. What do you say? I looked him straight in the eye. This was the moment I had been waiting for. No, Jordan. His face instantly changed. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. This house will never be yours. He jumped up from the couch, furious. Dad, don't be stubborn. That house is going to be mine when you die anyway. I smiled, and that smile unsettled him. Are you so sure about that? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I'm still alive, Jordan. And while I'm alive, I decide what happens to my assets. Not you. Me. He stayed silent, processing my words. Now, I continued calmly, I'm going to ask you to leave and not come back until you are ready to beg me for forgiveness on your knees for what you did. Forgiveness? Me ask you for forgiveness? He laughed bitterly. You're senile, old man. I didn't do anything wrong. I took money that was mine anyway. Leave, Jordan. I'm leaving. But you'll see. You're going to end up alone, bitter. And when you die, I'll still get everything, because you have nobody else. He slammed the door violently. I sat in silence. I was still trembling a little, but I also felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power, control, dignity. Jordan thought he had me cornered. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. The real lesson was about to start. 3 weeks passed without hearing anything from Jordan. Total silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was clear he had decided to punish me with his absence, as if that would break me. But that silence didn't hurt me as he expected. On the contrary, it was liberating. For the first time in years, I lived in peace in my own house, without scornful looks, without hurtful comments, without feeling like a nuisance in my own home. Until one Saturday morning, everything exploded. The doorbell rang insistently. When I opened it, there were Jordan and Chloe. But they looked different this time. Jordan was carrying a toolbox. Chloe was carrying shopping bags from a home decor store. What are you doing here? I asked, blocking the entrance. Dad, step aside, Jordan said with authority. We came to take measurements for the remodel. We've decided. We're moving in next month. You can stay in the downstairs bedroom. We're taking the whole upstairs. Excuse me? You heard me, Chloe interjected. Enough of the nonsense, Eli. This house is way too big for just you. We've already talked to a designer about modernizing everything. We're going to tear down these old walls, change the flooring, and put in an open concept kitchen. No one is touching anything in this house, I said firmly. And you are not moving in here. Jordan tried to push past me to get in, but I stood my ground. Dad, don't start. This house is going to be mine. No, Jordan. This house is not going to be yours. I'm your only son, your only heir. Not anymore. They both froze. What did you say? Jordan asked, his voice dangerously low. I pulled a copy of the new deed from my pocket. I unfolded it slowly, savoring every second of this. I said, this house isn't going to be yours, because it's not mine anymore either. I held out the paper. Jordan snatched it from my hands, and began to read it. I watched his face go from confusion to shock to absolute fury. "What is this?" he shouted, showing the paper to Chloe. "It says the house belongs to some Marcus Thorne. Did you sell it?" "That's right," I said calmly. "I sold it 2 weeks ago for $10,000. Completely legal. Here is the notary's seal, the signatures. Everything is in order." Chloe looked at me as if I had just murdered someone. "No, you can't do that," she stammered. "That house was the family asset. It was Jordan's inheritance." "It was my house," I corrected her. "And as the rightful owner, I had every right to sell it to whomever I pleased. As the rightful owner, I could do whatever I wanted with my property." Jordan was red with rage, the veins standing out on his neck. "Who did you sell it to? Who is this Marcus Thorne?" "A good man. A man who knows what loyalty and respect mean. Everything you forgot." "This can't be legal," Chloe screamed. "We're going to sue you." "You'll see." "Go ahead and sue me," I said calmly. "Talk to every lawyer you want. That sale is completely legal." I was in full use of my mental faculties. I am the legitimate owner, and I have the right to dispose of my property however I choose. No judge in the world is going to annul that sale. Jordan ripped the paper in his hands and threw it in my face. "You did this for revenge, out of spite, like a petty child." "No," I said, and my voice was colder than I expected. "I did it for survival, because you yourselves told me you were waiting for me to die, so you could take this house, because you stole my money and told me to consider it rent, because you treated me like trash in my own house. Now get out. You are a damn selfish old man." Jordan spat. "I gave you my card out of trust. I gave you my card out of trust, and you used it to rob me. Do you really not see the difference?" Chloe was crying now, but not out of sadness, out of impotent rage. "All of our financial planning, everything was based on this house. How could you do this to us?" "How could you do this to me?" I replied. "I'm your father. The $180,000 Jordan stole from me was 3 years of savings. Do you think that didn't hurt me? Do you think it didn't hurt to hear my own son say this house was practically his while I was still alive?" Jordan pointed at the house furiously. "So what now? Are you just going to live here as a tenant in a house that isn't even yours anymore?" "I have an agreement with the new owner. I can live here as long as I want, paying only utilities. He is a man of his word, unlike my son." "Who is he?" Jordan demanded. "Tell me, who is this Marcus Thorne? I'll go find him, offer him more money, buy it from him." I smiled. "You can try, but I assure you, he won't sell. He knows exactly what kind of person you are. I'm going to sue you and him." Jordan was out of control. "I'm going to prove that sale was fraudulent, that you were manipulated, that you're senile." "Go ahead," I said with absolute calm. "I'm 60 years old. I'm completely sane. And I have medical documentation to prove it. Also, guess what else? I have the bank camera footage of you emptying my account, the records of all the agents where you took my money, and a formal complaint for fraud." Jordan's face went pale. You reported me?" "Of course I reported you. You committed a crime, and the bank is investigating. It might take months, but they will eventually recover that money. And when that happens, you're going to have to pay it back with interest, and probably with legal consequences. Chloe dropped onto the entrance steps, sobbing. "You ruined our lives," she said through tears. "Are you happy? Is this what you wanted?" I looked at her steadily. "I didn't ruin anything, Chloe. You two ruined our relationship when you decided to see me as a nuisance instead of a father. When you decided to rob me. When you decided to humiliate me in my own home." Jordan took a threatening step toward me. "You are going to regret this, old man. I swear it. You'll end up alone, sick, with no one to care for you. And that day, you'll beg me to come back." "I'd rather die alone," I said in a firm voice, "than live humiliated by my own son." They left shouting curses, threats, and insults. The neighbors came out to see the commotion, but I didn't care. When I closed the door, my legs were shaking. I sat on the couch, breathing deeply. I had done the unthinkable. I had sold my house, my only asset, to protect myself from my own son. But I had also done something more important. I had reclaimed my dignity. That night, Marcus came to visit. He brought a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Mr. Sterling," he told me, "I know that wasn't easy, but you did the right thing." "Did I, Marcus? Sometimes I wonder." He interrupted me. "You taught me that respect isn't begged for, it's earned. And if someone doesn't respect you, they don't deserve your love. Jordan lost that right a long time ago." We toasted in silence. "And what's next, Mr. Sterling?" I looked around my living room, my house, that was no longer legally mine, but was still my home. "Now, I said, I live in peace. And if Jordan, someday, comes to me and truly apologizes with humility, acknowledging all the damage he did, maybe, just maybe, we can talk. But until that day, he's not my problem anymore." Marcus nodded. "And the house, Mr. Sterling? Anytime you want it back, I'll transfer it. Just say the word. For now, this is fine," I told him. "When the time is right, I'll know." But that wasn't the last move, because 3 days later, something happened that none of us expected. Something that would change everything, forever. The following Tuesday, I got a call from the bank. My heart started racing. It had to be about the fraud investigation. "Mr. Sterling, we have news," the executive said. "After reviewing the case with the legal department, we determined there was indeed unauthorized use of your card. Mr. Jordan Sterling has been notified that he must pay back the $180,000 within 30 days or face criminal charges for financial fraud." I was silent, processing the words. "Mr. Sterling, are you there?" Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you very much." That same afternoon, Jordan came to the house, but he was different this time. No Chloe, no arrogance, his head bowed, and his eyes red. When I opened the door, he just stood there without saying anything. "What do you want, Jordan?" "Dad, can we talk? Please?" I hesitated for a moment, but I let him in. He sat on the edge of the couch, his hands between his legs, like when he was a boy and had done something wrong. "I got the notification from the bank," he said, his voice breaking. "I have to pay back the money, or they're going to proceed legally against me. Dad, please, withdraw the complaint. I don't have $180,000. If this goes forward, I'll have a criminal record. I could lose my job." "You should have thought about that before you robbed me," I said, without emotion. I know, and his voice cracked. "Dad, I made a terrible mistake. I was an idiot. I let Chloe put ideas in my head about the money, the house, that we had to secure our future. But that doesn't justify what I did. For the first time in months, I saw my son cry. Cry for real, not out of rage or frustration, but out of regret. You know what hurt me the most, Jordan? I told him. It wasn't the money. It was that you treated me like my life didn't matter, as if I were just an obstacle between you and an inheritance, as if you were waiting for me to die. I never wanted you to die, Dad, he sobbed. I swear, I know I said horrible things, but never. But you thought it. You said you were waiting for nature to take its course. Those were your exact words. He covered his face with his hands. I have no excuse. I have no justification. I was the worst son in the world. And now, I've lost you. I lost the house. I lost your trust. I lost everything. And I deserve it. We were silent for several minutes. Only his sobs could be heard. Jordan, I finally said, I'm going to do something. But it's the last thing I do for you. I'm going to talk to the bank. I'm going to ask them to allow you to pay back the money in interest-free monthly installments. But on one condition, that you, yourself, go to the bank and sign a document acknowledging the fraud and committing to pay back every single dollar. He looked up, surprised. You would do that after everything? I'm doing it because I still remember the boy you were, the son who loved his father. But this gesture doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. That, Jordan, can only be recovered with time, a lot of time, and actions, not words. He nodded frantically. Whatever it takes, Dad. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm going to pay back every last dollar, and I'm going to... He took a deep breath. I'm going to divorce Chloe. That surprised me. She was the one who pushed me into this, he continued. Always complaining that we had to secure our future. That you'd already lived your life. She poisoned my head. But I was the coward who listened to her. The responsibility is mine. That's why I'm going to divorce her and start over. Divorce won't fix what you did, I told him. But it is a step. I know. He slowly got up. Dad, will you ever be able to forgive me? I looked at him for a long time. I saw the 35-year-old man. But I also saw the 8-year-old boy who cried in my arms when his mama died. I don't know, Jordan. Ask me that again in 5 years. After you've paid back every dollar. After you've proven to me with actions that you understood the lesson. Then maybe we can start to rebuild something. He nodded and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. I love you, Dad. I always loved you, even if it didn't look like it. I didn't answer. I just closed the door. 2 months later, Jordan started depositing $7,500 monthly into my account, every single month, without fail. Sometimes he would add a message. Month 1 of 24. I'm sorry, Dad. Month 2 of 24. Working to earn your trust back. I didn't reply to those messages, but I read them. Marcus, true to his word, transferred the deed back to me 6 months later. It was in my name again. But this time, I did something different. I created a will. The house wouldn't go to Jordan automatically. It would only be his if he proved for 5 years that he was a worthy son. If not, the house would go to an educational foundation for underprivileged children. Jordan knows this and has accepted it. Today, as I tell you this story, 2 years have passed. Jordan, is still paying religiously. We meet once a month for coffee. The conversations are uncomfortable, but they are slowly getting better. Have I forgiven him completely? No. It still hurts. I still remember the cruel words, the betrayal, the humiliation. But I am learning something important. Forgiveness is not an event. It is a process. And that process takes time. The lesson I learned, and the one I want you to take away, is this. Respect is not inherited. It is earned. Family is not an excuse for abuse. And never, ever let anyone, not even your own blood, take away your dignity. Because at the end of the day, the only thing we truly have is our self-respect. And that is priceless. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you are not alone. Many of you are going through similar situations, but there is always, always a way out. My name is Elijah Sterling. I'm 62 years old, and this is my story, a story of betrayal, but also of dignity reclaimed. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.